Lynda Tran, Leslie Sanchez, Antjuan Seawright, and Major Garrett. Lynda is a CBSN political contributor and Democratic strategist. Leslie is a CBS News political contributor and Republican strategist. Antjuan is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. And Major is CBS News chief Washington correspondent. It has been a very long evening. Major Garrett, I want to start with you. Put this into perspective for us. How seismic of a shock is what has happened here at the Iowa caucuses in 2020?
You mean what hasn't happened? The results?
Yeah, right.
The outcome?
Sure. Yes, that
the
one.
The thing we've all been waiting for?
Yes.
The thing that 7
Right.
campaigns deployed 100 staffers each in order to influence and create? What I do want to comment on is I think it's wonderful that so many candidates have hoisted their rhetorical participation trophies tonight. We participated. We participated. Thank you, Iowa.
Right.
On to New Hampshire. Seismic is the word. Iowa is, in every sense, being left behind. People are speaking and leaving. I don't know what the results are. I'm out of here. The roadies are cleaning up, okay?
I hear them.
You understand what's going on, people?
They really are.
The roadies are cleaning up, and we have not one single result.
Right.
Not from one precinct, not from one county.
Yeah.
To call it appalling is an understatement.
Yeah.
And I sat down on camera with the Iowa Democratic Party chairman. I asked him, do you have nightmare scenarios? Nope. Is this all going to work? You're doing 3 data sets. You've never done that before. Are you in any way uncertain that will work? Nope, all good. How's it going to happen? Oh, we got an app. The app is great. And if the app malfunctions, people can call in. I'm sorry, that falls into the category of near, well, I'll just say this. It is a kind of malpractice at the political level that will work to Iowa's disadvantage going forward. There was already, as 2 of our guests well know, embedded conversations within the Democratic Party about the very future of these caucuses. That was before they saw what is transpired tonight, which is a big nothing. It will deepen the conversation about the validity of the Iowa caucuses, Iowa's ability to carry them out, and why is it first?
And
which is, for Iowa Democrats,
Yeah.
as close to a catastrophe as you can imagine.
So to that point, Lynda, we'd been talking about that. A tremendous amount of resources were poured into this state. Never mind those people who were first-time caucus goers coming out to take part in what they believed was going to be an incredible evening where it was uncertain, not because of questions about the result, but because we didn't know how the contest itself was going to play out. What does this mean for Iowa's future as first in the nation?
Well, first, I want to separate those 2 things, because the fact that there were so many resources poured into the state, that was going to be true no matter what state it was, right? It's the fact that it's first, and because Iowa has such an organizing-centered strategy and required approach. So that was going to happen no matter what. But I actually deeply feel for those individuals who, as part of these campaign pitches, were told, thou shalt participate, because your voice matters here more than any place else. Your voice matters this cycle more than any other cycle before now. You can help change the shape of this competition. And for those 32% or so that the entrance polls told us were coming out for the first time, you can't imagine them wanting to come out again. I mean, it's not an easy process. It's not like, you know, showing up at a ballot box and, you know, giving them your ID, casting your ballot and leaving. You're there for hours and hours, being persuaded, hearing pitches, you know, moving from one side of the room to the other, potentially. And then for it all to come to nothing is hard.
So, Antjuan, quickly, because we're going to lose Major here, but go ahead and just tell me your
Here's why we have
thoughts.
to restore trust to Iowa Democrats. Iowa has 2 swing members who will be up for re-election in November, Abby Finkenauer and Cindy Axne. Those are places, those are districts that Donald Trump carried in 16, we won in 18. We have to restore confidence and trust back into Iowa Democrats. Number 2, there will be a U.S. Senate race on the ballot in Iowa that could set the tone for what happens from a majority perspective in the U.S. Senate next year. Not to mention all the other down-ballot races in Iowa, including a 4-seat margin in the state legislature that could mean Democrats taking the majority. So this party has an obligation to restore trust into Iowa Democrats, particularly those first-time voters, that we need to come back out and stay engaged in this process. And that's, if we don't take anything else from this, we can't write off Iowa just because we've moved on from a presidential preference perspective.
Leslie, let me ask you about how much of a political gift this is for the Trump campaign and President Trump himself.
Well, I think you heard it certainly in the Trump statement and in Brad Paskaal's statement, you know, kind of that victory lap. But he's definitely talking about, in contrast, Republicans used an app. It was very efficient. It worked very well. Republicans had a high turnout tonight in terms of kind of a contrast to that. They saw this rising, this Democrat, so many big Democratic campaigns. A lot more people came out than they anticipated. But more than anything, they don't have that one kind of shining campaign or one candidate they're going against now. It just looks like a Democratic failure, you know, in the aggregate. And because of that, I think it does give lift to the Trump campaign, at least for their traditional messaging.
Well, not just about the political mechanics. Look, the Trump campaign and other sympathetic Republicans have already said, wow, that's the party that wants to run your health care. How great will that be? Literally, that's 4 seconds. End of story.
Yeah.
And if you can end a conversation with a thump like that in 4 seconds, it's an advantageous position created entirely by the Iowa Democratic Party.
So, Major, I know we're about to lose you in the next couple minutes. You have other reporting obligations, but what is it that happens now? I mean, how has this affected the trajectory going into New Hampshire?
We don't even know if they're going to do this tonight or what tonight is for the Iowa Democratic Party. Are we going to wake up tomorrow and they'll be like, well, we'll get back to you at noon? Oh, great. There's already been 4 events in New Hampshire. And this idea, this historically valid idea and concept that Iowa is a springboard and Iowa is a place where you sort of narrow the field, what?
Yeah.
That window is closed. And you know who closed it? The candidates who claimed their participation trophy. They've moved on. And the sense that they can move on and no one's winnowing them out because Iowa's not known is now a valid theory. So that whole placement and all this money poured in and all this energy has sort of turned to dust before our very eyes because they couldn't count. And I'm sorry. If you're a caucus state and you're first in line, your number one unshakable obligation is to count and report and tell the country. 3 strikes, all missed.
All right, panel, thank you so much, Major. I know you have to get going. I want to turn now to our CBSN political reporter, Caitlin Huey-Burns. She is at Pete Buttigieg's headquarters in Des Moines. Caitlin, have you heard anything from the campaign at this point? We heard from the former mayor himself just a short time ago.
That's right. The former mayor just exited the stage here in Des Moines. I just want to explain kind of what this has come down to. You have the spokesperson, the Iowa campaign spokesperson for Pete Buttigieg, tweeting out precinct results in lieu of actual official campaign results, caucus results. He's been tweeting out pictures of precinct results. That's kind of what this has come down to. This is a campaign that was really counting on Iowa to give them a serious boost and make this a serious campaign. If you listen to Pete Buttigieg's speech just now, it was a victory speech. You could have given that at the Democratic Party convention. He not only claimed victory here in Iowa, but seemed to kind of try to project himself as the front runner, the winner of the Democratic primary. So this was very much a victory speech from Pete Buttigieg, and it reminded me a lot of Bill Clinton claiming victory in New Hampshire, calling himself the comeback kid. That's kind of the same sentiment we heard from Pete Buttigieg. He talked about his unlikely campaign for the presidency. He said he never thought he would be in this point, and he said that Iowa has put them on a path to victory. Now, there are no results in Iowa, of course, but Pete Buttigieg's campaign and other campaigns are quickly getting out of Iowa, taking this victory or trying to claim a victory here without any official results and moving right on to New Hampshire. So I like Major's metaphor there of everybody gets a trophy. That's certainly what we're hearing from the campaigns tonight, that the strategy is, at least for Pete Buttigieg, to claim victory here and move on to the next race. But it's really just remarkable, the turn of events. We cannot iterate it enough, especially for campaigns like Pete Buttigieg, who is really counting on Iowa to deliver something decisive And it's interesting to contrast that to how the Biden campaign seems to be talking about this, discrediting the results. I was getting a text message from a progressive activist who is very concerned that Biden might be able to kind of get away without having to have a big loss in Iowa because the results are so muddled.
And so, Caitlin, it was really striking to listen and to watch Pete Buttigieg address his supporters in very much that victorious kind of tone as he prepares to head to New Hampshire. I mean, for people in the room, with respect to this delay, did you get a chance to talk to them? What are they saying about it, the supporters of Pete Buttigieg?
This was a very energetic crowd. They'd been waiting here. Pete Buttigieg was the last of the major candidates to speak, but this was a crowd that was very engaged throughout this whole night, really, staying through a packed crowd till the end here at Drake University. This is a campus that we've been to a lot over the past several months. The Democrats had a debate here as well, so this was a crowd that was really excited to see Pete Buttigieg. There was also huge applause for his husband, Chaston, and it was kind of a remarkable image to see, even though we don't have any results, that Pete Buttigieg figures to get delegates out of Iowa as the first openly gay contender for the presidency. So that image alone, I think the campaign will take as a historic moment in this campaign, even if we don't have the results.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns for us. Caitlin, thank you very much. Let's go now to CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. He is at Senator Bernie Sanders' headquarters in Des Moines. So, Ed, what more do we know about this delay, how the campaigns are responding to this?
Well, we know from now various state party officials, county party officials, they have received no guidance as of 11:54 Central, 12:54 Eastern, as to whether or not results are imminent, hours away, days away. The other thing we've learned now, CBS News can confirm, you may recall a few hours ago we were told there was a call going on between the campaigns and the state party regarding what had happened. The call reportedly, I guess we confirm now, ended abruptly when some of the campaigns began pressing the state party for results, meaning that they basically said, this call is over, we're not telling you yet. They clearly don't have all the data based on reports we've been getting from county party chairmen across the state who say they haven't been able to call in, despite maybe having a great turnout and a well-run operation. They just can't report it up the chain to Central Committee and the state party. So as Major said, this is, a disaster for the party, malpractice for those who were responsible for counting this. There'll be a lot of questions about the app that they were using, who developed it, why it didn't work, were instructions properly given, and the political fallout will continue. And to Caitlin's point about some of these campaigns now tweeting out what they believe to be results, that is no different, really, than what Republicans and the president have done in stoking false information about elections before there were final results. And for them to criticize the president and his team for at times sharing false information or trying to stoke rumors, to be doing that tonight via Twitter or in other ways, how is that any different? And the only result that will matter is when the state party reports the results, whatever that is. The problem for them now is there's going to be so much doubt about that because of what's been stoked tonight, the confusion of the reporting, the spin that's been given by these various campaigns, and the lack of certainty going into tomorrow, which really actually going into later today, because it is already Tuesday.
That's right. All right, Ed O'Keefe for us. Ed, thank you very much. Let's go back to the CBS Broadcast Center in New York, where Anthony Salvanto is standing by. Anthony, of course, our CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys. So, Anthony, what can you tell us from your perspective?
Well, Elaine, we're still here, still staring at the blank map. We'll see. We don't have any updates on when these results might get released, but we are still here. I'm still here, at least until the coffee wears off, Elaine. But if we're going to look forward, then what we do is we say, okay, so the campaigns now are headed out of Iowa, and they're going to head over here to New Hampshire, as we know, and I'm going to use this telestrator because if we don't have results, I'm going to draw flight plans here, and then out to Nevada, and then they're going to South Carolina, and that's where the campaign goes next. So that, I guess, as everybody's attention starts turning to New Hampshire, we'll be there next Tuesday and find out what happens.
All right, Anthony, you did warn us that it could be a very long night. You, in fact, sir, were correct. Thank you, Anthony Salvanto. I want to bring back in our panel here for some final thoughts. Lynda Tran, Leslie Sanchez, and Antjuan Seawright. Antjuan, I want to start with you. This is something, as we heard Ed say a moment ago, no one could have predicted, right? We went into this evening with this sense of uncertainty about how this contest was going to shake out. Instead, uncertainty now over the results themselves.
Yeah, that's not a good thing for Iowa's sake, but I don't think this will have trickle-down effect on caucuses and primaries to come. I think candidates and campaigns are going to recalibrate. They're going to realize their mistakes in Iowa because, as Lynda pointed out and Leslie, people know what the results are internally by their own measurements, and I think this campaign is going to shift. Some campaigns are going to focus on New Hampshire, others are going to flirt with New Hampshire, but really focus on Nevada and South Carolina, where you have a more diverse population, a group of people who are going to show up, and I think that's what the narrative is going to be. It's a marathon, not a sprint. This is just one lap in the race.
Leslie, final thoughts.
Astronomical failure for the Democrats, and it's also compounded by the fact that they were overselling, the Democratic National Committee was overselling the fact they were going to have this transparency, this efficient, effective technology they were using, that they were, kind of up to date, state-of-the-art approach in this application that they had, and all of that crashed. And just to Major Garrett's point, just saying, if you can't get that right, how can we trust you for the bigger things and to run the government effectively? Whether people want to believe that or not, that's the message tonight sent, and that's why I think so many of them are on planes and ready to get moving to the next state.
Lynda.
I think we're going to see a winning of the field after tonight, no matter what. When we might not have seen it laid out in a really clear map the way that we might have had we seen actual percentages and state delegate equivalents. But those campaigns that were on the edge, that were on the bubble, they are not going to have the resources that they need to move forward in a substantial way in this competition. And so I think that the field is roughly going to remain the same in that top tier, and the rest are going to start to fall away.
All right. A big thank you, a very big thank you to
you,
our
Elaine.
panel, Lynda Tran, Leslie Sanchez, and Antjuan Seawright. It's just my job, Antjuan. We're going to take a quick break. You're